Well, good afternoon to you. It's now 4:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Mike Davis joins us from the Article 3 Project. We're going to talk to him about the big results from the election, President Trump's victory, what comes next, and Jack Smith's rapid exit from the Justice Department. He's packing his things right now and getting out of Dodge. Neil Patel joins us from the Daily Caller at 5 o'clock today. He's the publisher. He was with President Trump last night at that big victory party down in Florida. He'll tell us what he saw and what it means for the country. And you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Kamala Harris is set to give a concession speech at Howard University coming up here. There's a lot of hugging and crying going on in the crowd, awaiting her arrival on stage. It was supposed to be a victory stage, but it has become the place where she's going to, concede in some capacity, coming up very shortly here. Among the seat fillers, Nancy Pelosi, who looks miserable. She looks absolutely miserable outside at Howard University, which is well-deserved. So there she is, filling a seat to try and make it seem like the crowd is really packed. They even brought out Nancy Pelosi, who is wearing, I'm seeing now, ridiculous sunglasses. So everything about her, that's to cover the tears, I think. Does she have the capacity to produce tears? Is that possible? She's miserable, though, one way or the other. You want some more encouraging news about all of this? I just saw, I probably should give credit, but I don't have the tweet in front of me right now. Do you know what events President Trump is going to be able to oversee here in the United States now? Among them, we are approaching the sesquicentennial of the United States of America. That is 250 years of existence next year. 2026. 2026. President Trump, that's July 4th, 2026, President Trump will be able to oversee the festivities. Nobody throws an America party like Donald Trump. So that's going to be awesome. That'll be fantastic. Additionally, the World Cup is coming to the United States in 2026. President Trump will be able to even govern a soccer tournament here in the United States of America. That'll be cool for him to be president. And additionally, he'll be president when the Olympics arrive in 2028 in Los Angeles. So we've got a whole bunch of big events, global events that President Trump's going to be able to oversee. Just a couple more things that make all of this oh so awesome. Oh so very awesome. We have a lot of calls coming in right now as we await Kamala Harris's remarks, but I want to get to yours first, and I'm so glad you're calling in. Adam is calling in now from Silver Spring on line 3. Adam, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon. First of all, I just want to thank God that the best person won the presidency of the United States, the best person who can lead our country, and I just thank God for that. Secondly, I just want to thank God because my children and grandchildren will be better off as a result of this election. And I was one of the poll workers at one of the voting centers, and I just think that we're going to meet and talk about what happened, but we just need more people who love this country to come out and volunteer when it's time to volunteer, when these elections come up. Because at one point I was the only one out there, and there's so many people come out there. So many people don't know.
Yeah.
Some people don't know what to do. We have new voters. And so, I just thank God. I thank him so much for Donald Trump being elected as the president of the United States. I am so happy about that.
I'm right there with you, Adam. And that's an important message too. I mean, that is really the way to win these things. You've got to get out there. You've got to be part of the change. You've got to be an activist. You have to be just telling people what the future holds and why they should support Donald Trump. And it takes people like you, Adam, just actually being out there doing the footwork and making that happen. So thank you, sir, for doing that. Really appreciate that. And I hope more people follow your footsteps.
God bless you. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Adam. That's Adam out in Silver Spring, working hard for the victory that just happened. And grateful to God, like so many of us. Man, a lot of prayers of gratitude up today. Let me see. I've got Jason calling in from Montrose now on line 8. Jason, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Line 8, Jason. Hello.
Hey, sir. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jason. What's on your mind?
Hey, quick question. I like watching all the talk shows, especially The View, first thing this morning. And the first thing Sunny Hostin was screaming about was that for future job applications, the question, are you a felon, needs to be taken off since now we have a felon for president.
Mm-hmm.
May not be quoting her correctly. And a bunch of other people that I know, that's the first thing that they scream is that he's a felon, he's convicted felon, he's convicted this, he's convicted that. Did the Supreme Court or somebody overturn all his convictions, or is he an actual convicted individual?
He is a convicted felon right now because of the state of New York and because of a Manhattan jury and Alvin Bragg's ridiculous case there involving Stormy Daniels. And that's one of the reasons I actually voted for him. I was like, man, I'm with the felon, and I was very supportive of him for that reason, Jason. But yeah, that's right. That continues to be the case. And the Supreme Court came out with a couple of decisions, obviously, that were relevant to President Trump, and that included that in some of these other cases involving Jack Smith, that he's entitled to a very meaningful degree of immunity for all the official actions he took while he was president of the United States, and that matters. And of course, they're still battling that out legally. And one of the other big pieces, Jason, is that Judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida said that the documents dispute case was complete nonsense because Jack Smith is an unconstitutional prosecutor. He is not eligible to be even doing what he's been doing, attacking President Trump. So, yes, the left abused its power to go after Trump, to give him the label of felon, and he won, not in spite of that, but also because of that, Jason. And it's just crazy that we've gotten to this place.
But did they ever find out that the Democrats put Alvin Bragg up to charging him or taking him to court for that issue that he's convicted of?
That was not as crystal clear as we want it to be in terms of finding out all the evidence, but Alvin Bragg, all these guys have been visiting the White House and chatting with the Justice Department. There's been a lot of that going on, Jason, which leads most of us who are observing it closely to think, yeah, obviously, that this was a coordinated hit on Donald Trump. But hopefully, here's one of the upsides to President Trump returning to the White House: disclosure, transparency, opening the records, and getting us every last thing we deserve to see about what's actually happening to our country. So, Jason, I look forward to that, and I'm sure you do too, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
You too, Jason. There's Jason in Montrose. Yeah, no, that's true. The left abused its power. And it's so funny. They're running around saying, oh, Trump's going to abuse his power. Trump's going to abuse power. What, like you? Neil's calling in from Brooklyn now on line 9. Neil, good afternoon to you, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. Congratulations. You, sir, are a major force of free expression, at least as far as it extends to Brooklyn.
Why is that?
Thank you.
In Brooklyn, of all places.
Yep. Now, here's my question. When Trump doesn't put them in crematoria and he doesn't arrest them for being gay or separate mixed-race spouses, and he doesn't start World War III, and he doesn't put them in Trump youth camps, and he doesn't take away their FCC licenses, etc.
Yeah.
What's their excuse going to be?
They won't.
Are they just gonna ignore it, move on to the next faux Hitler? I think you probably have a better answer to this.
Your answer is correct. That's exactly right. They'll just pretend like they never said it. It's always that way. It's never like they go back and they're like, oh, my priors were wrong, or oops, sorry, I got that one wrong. Oh, we need to take an examination of conscience here. I mean, look, Donald Trump was president of the United States already. They pretend that presidency didn't exist in order to make the outlandish claims that you just described. So, no, there will be no soul searching. There will be no relitigating it. It'll just be on to the next outrage, on to the next hoax. The final week of the entire campaign, Neil, was defined by a series of hoaxes that were delivered on a silver platter by the American news media, and they acted like they were all serious, and all of them were lies about Donald Trump and his intentions for this country.
Right. Well, do you think that they might claim at the end of his tenure that they stood shoulder to shoulder athwart the evil orange man and held back the tide of tyranny? Some nonsense like that?
If they want to continue the course of the stupidity of their party, then yes. And unfortunately, all the signals point to that's where they're headed, Neil. Because last night, for 4 seconds, we heard, oh, wow, we really got to reconsider our strategy. And then by this morning, Neil, The company line among Democrats in front of microphones all day today is that the reason Donald Trump won is because Americans are racist and sexist, that they can't handle a woman of color as president of the United States, and that's the only explanation for what occurred. And in real life, Neil, the explanation is people are poorer now under Biden and Harris. They don't like the open border. They don't like the rise in violence. They don't like all of the ensuing wars. They are very dissatisfied with the leadership of this country right now, and Kamala Harris is in the leadership of this country. And so they said, let's go with the guy where things were much better, and that was Donald Trump. It's as simple as that. And yet they're saying this morning and all day today that it was racism and sexism that led to this outcome. So if you're wondering, are they going to change course? The answer right now is no.
Well, that's why we need to change course. I hope by then we'll have learned to just block them out of our lives completely and not be using them as a reference for any of our views.
Yeah. No, it's already started with the media, that's for sure. The American people are right there with you, Neil. Their trust in media and observation of media, consumption of that legacy media is falling off a cliff, and deservedly so. And I'm with you, Neil. I think that's a big sign of progress. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's Neil calling from Brooklyn now. Chris calling in from Bluemont now, line 8. Hello, Chris. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, how you doing, man? I talked to you yesterday about my first time voting.
Oh, yeah.
And I did end up talking about, the felon thing.
Yes.
And, I'm a convicted felon myself. I have got my voting rights back. And that was a major reason. That was one of the major things, that Trump went through a lot, like them weaponizing this government against him. And, him, being a convicted felon, that was I just wanted to say, that was one of the major reasons why I went in and voted, and I did everything I needed to do to be able to do so.
That's cool.
So.
All right, Chris, and how'd you feel after you voted yesterday? When I talked to you, you hadn't yet voted, then you did. How'd you feel after that?
Yep. Man, it was awesome. I walked in the parking lot, and real quick, man, there was like 5 other like 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, young kids, that were walking in the parking lot with me, and they all got Republican, sample ballots.
Yeah.
Like young kids, in Loudoun County, Virginia. I mean, it was amazing, man.
It was amazing. In fact, the youth vote was massive yesterday.
Absolutely.
For President Trump. Massive seismic shifts. Young voters made up 16% of the electorate yesterday. Young men between the ages of 18 and 19 years old, they voted for Trump by a 13-point margin yesterday. A 13-point margin. That's not typical. Usually Democrats win the day with those young voters in the past.
Absolutely.
And then he chipped in meaningfully into the votes among young women. In fact, going back to 2020, Joe Biden takes 32% of the 18 to 29 female vote. President Trump just took 18% of that. It went to Kamala Harris by 18%. But in other words, that's a massive declination from where they were. They're moving dramatically to the right, and that's a good sign.
Yeah. Yep. This country needs a change, man, and we got it.
All right. Hey, Chris, thank you, and congrats again on voting. That's great, and I'm right there with you. I voted for Trump in part because he's a felon too. That's why I liked him. All right, hang with me. Kamala Harris is dragging out even her concession speech. Okay, Kamala Harris is now stepping up to the microphone to give her address. Let's listen in from Howard University.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let me say, and I love you back. And I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say.
That's what the rest of us voted for.
Hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright.
We know.
As long as we never give up and as long as we keep fighting. To my beloved Doug and our family, I love you so very much.
Doug Emhoff is in the crowd.
To President Biden and Dr. Biden, thank you for your faith and support.
The Bidens are not in the crowd.
To Governor Walz and the Walz family, I know your service to our nation will continue.
Walz is one of the reasons she lost.
And to my extraordinary team, to the volunteers who gave so much of themselves, to the poll workers and the local election officials, I thank you. I thank you all. Look, I am so proud of the race we ran and the way we ran it. And the way we ran it. Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community.
That's an excuse.
And building coalitions.
107 days.
Bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country, with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now.
A small number of folks.
I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
If there's anything she specializes in, it's transitions.
A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States.
So don't abuse your power, is that what you're saying?
And loyalty to our conscience and to our God. My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
She doesn't like what you did. She doesn't like your vote.
The fight for freedom, for opportunity, for fairness, and the dignity of all people. A fight for the ideals at the heart of our nation. The ideals that reflect America at our best. That is a fight I will never give up.
Like calling Americans garbage, saying they're having Nazi rallies, saying Trump supporters are fascists.
I will never give up the fight for a future where Americans can pursue their dreams, ambitions, and aspirations. Where the women of America have the freedom to make decisions about their own body and not have their government telling them what to do.
I don't know if you saw the election numbers.
We will never give up the fight to protect our schools and our streets from gun violence.
I thought you were a gun owner.
And America, we will never give up the fight for our democracy, for the rule of law, for equal justice, and for the sacred idea that every one of us, no matter who we are or where we start out, has certain fundamental rights and freedoms that must be respected and upheld.
You see the democracy exit polls? Trump scored better than she did among voters who love democracy.
And we will continue to wage this fight in the voting booth, in the courts, and in the public square.
In the courts.
And we will also wage it in quieter ways, in how we live our lives, by treating one another with kindness and respect.
Sure.
By looking
She's turning
in the
over a new
face
leaf.
of a stranger and seeing a neighbor. By always using our strength to lift people up, to fight for the dignity that all people deserve.
Uh-oh.
The fight
She's
for
entering
our freedom
her platitude
will take
tornado.
hard work. But like I always say, we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work can be joyful work. And the fight for our country is always worth it. It is always worth it.
Isn't it great you don't have to listen to that for 4 years? Isn't it wonderful?
To the young people who are watching, it is... I love you. To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed. But please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win.
Well, we did. We actually did win.
That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power.
Oh, my goodness.
And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before.
These are ridiculous inspirational phrases that you would find at the discount section of Home Goods.
You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together.
I know. This is tedious.
Look, many of you know I started out as a prosecutor, and throughout my career, I saw people at some of the worst times in their lives.
Name a case that you prosecuted.
People who had suffered great harm and great pain, and yet found within themselves the strength and the courage and the resolve to take the stand, to take a stand.
What?
To fight for justice.
And the American way.
To fight for themselves. To fight for others. So let their courage be our inspiration.
Oh my God.
Let their determination be our charge. And I'll close with this.
Thank God.
There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time.
I've got another one for you.
But for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light.
Are you crying, Corey?
The light of optimism.
He's so inspired.
Of faith, of truth, and service.
Oh my gosh. Here's another phrase. It's always darkest before the dawn. Donald Trump specifically.
HU. And may that work guide us, even in the face of setbacks, toward the extraordinary promise of the United States of America. I thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I thank you all.
Just platitude after platitude after platitude from Kamala Harris, which means, well, thanks for staying with us through Kamala's ridiculous speech and the celebration of President Trump's victory here on WMAL. Coming up, Neil Patel will be with us. He's the publisher of the Daily Caller. We'll talk to him about that big victory. He was with President Trump last night. He'll give us his sense of everything that's going on. And you can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joining us now is Mike Davis. He's the founder and president of the Article 3 Project, and this is an outcome that he was hoping, praying, and working for as well. Mike, good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
What a day. So let's just begin with what this means for America, Mike, in your view.
I think President Trump is going to save America from utter destruction from the Biden and Kamala regime, where you had over 10 million illegal immigrants mass imported into our country to change our population so the Democrats can take power, like in Ohio and other places. You had Kamala Harris as the Biden border czar. If she would have won the presidency, you would have seen our country unrecognizable after 4 years of Kamala Harris mass importing more illegal immigrants. You also had Kamala Harris as the tie-breaking vote on Bidenomics. They would have continued that. They would have destroyed our country, and this gives America a fighting chance to get out of this deep hole that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put us in. Look, President Trump does not need this job. He has a better house. He has a better airplane. He has a better helicopter. He has better cars. He doesn't need this. And he's doing this because he loves our country, and he was willing to put everything on the line for our country. He put his fortune, he put his liberty, he put his life, he put everything on the line. And I expected this result, and I'm very happy and relieved with this result.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. In fact, as the founders said, he put his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor on the line to get back to this job of helping to lead the country out of this. So, Mike Davis, let's talk about some of the legal stories that are developing in the wake of President Trump's victory last night. Among them, reports coming out today from Fox, NBC, and elsewhere that Special Counsel Jack Smith is now going to be leaving the Justice Department, I guess imminently, and taking all of his cases against President Trump with him. What do you make of this news?
That's pretty amazing. So I thought that Jack Smith told everyone that the election is irrelevant and has nothing to do with the election. He's going to move forward anyway. And then after the American people stepped up and delivered their verdict, now Jack Smith is shutting down this thing. It seems like that proves my point that I've been making for 2.5 years, that this is political, this is lawfare, this is election interference. Otherwise, why would you shut down this thing the day after the election?
Exactly. Because you knew this was one of the very possible and, in fact, likely outcomes. So why would you just shut it down now?
That's exactly right. And I will say this, I've made this my mission. I have made, with the Article 3 Project, with over 4,200 media hits, including many times on your show, constant social media, constant opinion pieces at the Article 3 Project, we changed the politics of this. I remember 2.5 years ago coming down to Mar-a-Lago, meeting President Trump for dinner when everyone else left him for roadkill on the side of the road after the Mar-a-Lago raid. And we saw that this was a grave injustice, and this was so much bigger than President Trump. This was so much bigger than one election.
Yes.
If you can have a sitting president do this to his predecessor and likely successful, if you could, this is how the Roman Republic fell. It was the lawfare by the Roman insiders against Caesar that caused him to feel desperate and cross the Rubicon from Gaul into Rome, and it led to the Civil War and the fall of the Roman Republic. And I was not going to let that happen. The Article 3 project was not going to let a corrupt president put his predecessor in prison for the rest of his life for these bogus charges. And so at the Article 3 project, we turned lemons into lemonade, and we succeeded yesterday.
Okay, so Mike Davis, while you're on this issue, I think it's interesting, and I mentioned earlier in the program that I almost think in some ways, despite the fact that we've had to go through it, that it's almost better that President Trump won in 2024 for two reasons. One, the American people, those who hadn't already been convinced, they learned the lessons of what happens when the left takes over. And two, President Trump really figured out who his friends were and who's actually standing up for the voters who support him. And boy, a lot of people, tucked tail and ran when President Trump was being subjected to raids on his home by the Biden Justice Department. Do you think that all of that was clarifying and helpful for President Trump as he makes staffing decisions going into this next administration?
Absolutely. I am sitting in the Trump campaign right now in West Palm Beach. I was here as a volunteer for the legal effort for the election. I'm going to volunteer my time for the transition. I'm going to make sure that President Trump hires very good people who are both competent and loyal for his second term. Look, remember when Trump won the first time? He was an amateur politician. He had never run for office. His first run at anything, he wins the presidency. And I think he'll even admit this, that he made mistakes on personnel. Personnel is policy. So if you pick the wrong personnel, you're going to have bad policy. If you pick incompetent people, if you pick disloyal people, it is disastrous to the presidency. He's not going to make those mistakes again. And I'm going to make damn sure that President Trump has good lawyers around him. I'm going to make sure he has a good attorney general, good Justice Department, good lawyers, good judges. I'm going to volunteer my time for President Trump because it's too important. President Trump is going to save our country from the Marxist left who have destroyed this with their open borders, with their out of control spending. They have really hurt real Americans and real America with migrant crime, with inflation, with high interest rates. Yeah. And these Marxists don't care. They only care about power. President Trump cares about real Americans and real America, and that's why the uniparty, the globalists, the DC swamp, that's why they hate Trump.
So two other big legal issues, both of them out of New York, that I just want to ask you about. One, Mike Davis, we're supposed to have some sort of sentencing for President Trump coming up in New York in this Alvin Bragg case involving Stormy Daniels. What happens with that case?
Well, I would say this. President Trump settled a nuisance claim as a businessman. He put it in his private books as a legal expense. I don't know what the hell else you would call it. And that was 7 years ago. 7 years later, they brought 34 felony charges against Trump by this political process with this Democrat judge, this Biden appointee, Matthew Colangelo, Alvin Bragg, who campaigned on getting Trump. Look, there are so many reversible errors with this case, but on November 12th, Judge Juan Merchan, this corrupt judge whose daughter Laura Merchan raised money off of this case requiring his recusal, he must throw out this case because of presidential immunity. There are many reversible errors, but the key one is presidential immunity. They took evidence of Trump's conversations with his top aides as the president of the United States. The Supreme Court in the presidential immunity decision in June said you can't do that. So on that ground alone, this judge needs to declare a mistrial and get rid of this case.
Okay, and then one more for you. Letitia James had this to say today. She's defiant in the face of Trump's victory last night.
We did not expect this result, but we are prepared to respond to this result. And my office has been preparing for several months because we've been here before. We faced this challenge before. And we use the rule of law to fight back. And we are prepared to fight back once again. Because as the Attorney General of this great state, it is my job to protect and defend the rights of New Yorkers and the rule of law. And I will not shrink from that responsibility.
What do you make of that heavily intoned babbling nonsense?
I would say this to Big Tish. Big Tish James, the Attorney General of New York, is partisan hack. She's about to get reversed by all Democrats on the New York Appellate Division because her case is so bogus. I hope she doesn't think she's going to continue this unprecedented Republic-ending lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because she might find herself on the receiving end of a very serious probe under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, a very serious federal civil rights crime, conspiracy against rights. When you politicize and weaponize your office as a prosecutor to go after American citizens and violate their constitutional rights, you are committing a very serious felony. So I would tell Big Tish, be careful what you're trying to do here, honey, because you may end up yourself in prison.
Amen. Hey, Mike Davis, what a great day and what a great privilege as always to chat with you. Thank you, Mike, from the Article 3 Project. MSNBC's Joy Reid is handling all of this about exactly as you'd expect. She's attacking white women. She's attacking, well, Generation X.
My generation, Generation X, the people who grew up on WWE and Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump did this. They did this. They are the ones who looked in the face of somebody who said, I want to be a dictator on day one. We did this. We did this to our kids. Our elders, our seniors, our 65 plus split 50-49 in her favor. So they washed either way. But our generation has to really take a really long, hard look, because we're not the people struggling that Claire described. It's the young people that we've now condemned to mass deportation.
She's mentally ill, and they put her on the air. It's unbelievable. It continues even. And she's so wrong on everything. The young people broke for Trump by 10 points. And yes, thank you to Generation X. The latchkey kids show up. They know what it's like to take care of themselves. And they did. They voted for Trump. It's 4:58.